Good afternoon. I would like to call this session to order. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the CSTD session. This afternoon, I have the honor to moderate the Ministerial Roundtable on the role of science, technology, and innovation in accelerating the recovery from the coronavirus disease, COVID-19, and the full implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development at all levels. This roundtable is an opportunity for ministers and other high-level policymakers to exchange experiences, lessons learned, and good practices, to discuss national and global challenges and put forward recommendations for policies and actions in STI to achieve the full implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The outcomes of the discussion will be reflected in the report of the annual session of the Commission to be submitted to the Economic and Social Council and the 2023 High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development under the auspices of the Council for consideration. A series of questions for discussions were proposed in the concept note, and I look forward to listening to our high-level participants in this context. Let me remind participants that, as announced in the program, interpretation services for interventions by remote participants is limited to a cumulative total of 30 minutes per session. Once the 30 minutes is exceeded, interpretation will subsequently be provided only for in-person interventions. Let me now turn to Ms. Shamika Sarimani, our Director of the Division of Technology and Logistics, to present the UNCTAD Technology and Innovation Report 2023. You have the floor, Madam.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Good afternoon, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for the opportunity. And let me start the presentation. Technology and Innovation Report 2023. We look at the opening green windows, basically green technologies for development. And I want to thank all of you. This report reflects many of the discussions that you have had in CSTD under many different topics. So the first point is that the report recognizes is that we are at the beginning of a green technological revolution, and developing countries must catch this revolution early. What we see in many other technological revolutions, if countries miss the early stages, and it creates gaps that are very hard to close later. So from government policies to private sector initiatives, developing countries need strong responses to take advantage of these green windows of opportunity before they close. And international cooperation plays a very big role. I think there's a whole chapter on that. Now, when you look at the numbers, you see that we are looking at 17 frontier technologies, including green technologies, and these include artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, green hydrogen, electric vehicles, and so forth. And we analyzed the market size, the potential to create jobs, and the most promising sectors. And you can see that these technologies already represent $1.5 trillion market today, which would grow to over 9.5 trillion by 2030. It's like a 6 times jump. And as you can see in the graph here, the pie charts, the IoT, Internet of Things, is the fastest growing segment. What we also see is that so far it's developed economies that have been able to seize most of the opportunities You can see the export numbers here. The total exports of green technologies jumped from around 60 billion in 2018 to over 156 billion in 2021 for the developed economies. And in the same period, exports from developing countries rose from a similar starting line of about $57 billion to only about 75 billion, in 2018, and this is including China. And you also see the graph of the electric vehicles, and the top exporters are the Germany, USA, China, Korea, Japan, Belgium, Spain, and so forth. So what we see is the opportunities are being they're at an aspirational level for many developing countries right now. In our report, we also look at the readiness index, how ready developing countries are to capture these frontier technologies. We look at the ICT infrastructure, the skills, R&D, industrial capabilities, and also finance. So we have a series of indicators on which we rank 166 countries. If you can see the numbers on top, they're all dominated by high income countries, notably the US, Sweden, Singapore, Switzerland, and the Netherlands on very top. And the emerging economies are primarily found in the second quarter of the list. This is the Brazil at 40, China is ranked at 35, India at 46, and Russian Federation at 31, and South Africa places at 56 out of 166 countries. Now, we also see that some economies have made important policy changes that have enabled them to perform better than expected according to their GDP per capita. Now, this is an important point. So that means there's a policies have a role to play. And India remains the greatest overperformer, ranking 67 positions better than expected, when you look at the per capita income, and followed by the Philippines, 54 position jumped, and Vietnam, 44 position jumped from you look at just the per capita income. So in this report, we look at paths to seize benefits from the new technological revolution in 3 areas. We look at developing and using renewable energy technologies, and this is much based on conversations that we had in a CSTD a few years ago on renewable technologies and energy is renewable energy technologies. And we look at the greening traditional global value chains by switching to digital technologies. And the third area we look at is the possibility for diversifying towards production sectors that are more green. So now let me present to you a few of those findings. So number 1, developing and using renewable energy technologies. Looking at these technologies, there is significant variability in catch-up trajectories at the sector and country level. We have looked at 4 different scenarios. We have looked at the windows are wide open, windows to be open, and the green windows within reach, and windows in the distance. We categorize where the maturity of these technologies. What we see again and again is that the efforts are successful when preconditions, meaning endowments, are combined with strong responses. Now, if you look at this window, the very first one, windows open, you see the story of Brazil. Brazil is in a strong position for biofuel as it has a long history of sugarcane cultivation, while also creating demand and establishing a supportive framework. But we also see in the report that the lack of strong preconditions does not mean that the windows of opportunities is closed. Much depends on the policy responses and incentives built around these sectors. And for example, if you look at the third quadrant, windows within reach, is the Thailand story. The Thai government addressed weak initial preconditions for biofuel through strong policy responses. So that's what was the success story. It was not so much the endowment. And then we look at the second part is the whole GVC, the traditional global value chains. And we find that developing countries benefit from two intertwined processes, greening and digitalizing global value chains. And this is by promoting, for example, data collected from online connected sensors and from GPS tracking systems to optimize logistics and significantly reduce carbon emissions. So how do you bring digital technologies to do manufacturing, basically to do smart manufacturing? And if you remember, many of you were participating last year in the conversation of Industry 4.0 technologies, and we had experts from different countries talking about the smart manufacturing in developing country setup. Now, upgrading GVCs can be also based on voluntary sustainability standards. This triggers a series of changes in the value chain from upstream inputs to production process, from product design to downstream consumption. We also see multinational companies that the owners of these GVCs have a very big role to play when they take a role to provide incentives and to support low-income countries. We find there are a lot of success stories around that. And then the third aspect we looked at was the diversifying towards production sectors that are more complex and greener. And this endeavor is much harder for low-income countries, and that's what we see in the report. A lot more attention need to be paid to developing an innovation ecosystem. And what we do for example, science, technology, and innovation policy reviews. There's a lot of work needs to be done for the government and the industry and the other actors, the financial sector, academia, think tanks. They all need to work together to develop the ecosystem, and then you can make headway in getting into more complex and greener manufacturing. And this is, we see, is much harder if you don't have this fundamental ecosystem development concept. And then, of course, we have a series of recommendations, several chapters. So I will not, I think we heard some of the recommendations already. Ambassador, you also mentioned several recommendations during the Great Mind session. We look at the national policies. We talk about the setting the direction towards green technologies and innovation, especially aligning environmental and industrial policies and bringing a whole of a government approach to greening and investing on more complex and greener sectors and incentives and infrastructure to shift demand. And we also look at the green productive and innovative capacities, how to build these. We look at the awareness raising, digital infrastructure and skills, but these are all at the domestic level. And let me take you through very quickly on international cooperation. And much of the success of domestic policies will depend on international cooperation. Some of these elements were discussed, the collaboration among research and researchers, bringing students to learn from each other. And we discussed a lot this morning, so I would not go into that. But I want to emphasize some ideas from international trade. How can the international trade regime also support the greening of, opening green windows of opportunities for developing countries? So in the report, we talk about consistency between international agreements on trade, intellectual property, and climate change. We say that these are critical for green technology revolution, and we find many of these ideas are enshrined in the Paris Agreement, but they're not then picked up at the WTO trade agreements. And we also have a series of recommendations on how trade rules can permit developing countries, especially low-income countries, to protect infant green industries through tariff subsidies and public procurement. And we have recommendations on intellectual property and how they can be, how greater flexibilities can be built into intellectual property rights so that developing countries can capture the green windows of opportunities. And here in this last point, we look at very carefully at the flexibility. Some of the flexibility was built around the COVID-19 vaccines, and because it was a public health crisis. So we say that the climate change is a similar or even a bigger crisis because it's really an existential crisis. So do we need to then also build certain flexibilities into IPR, intellectual property regimes, so that we avoid this the calamity, existential calamity that we are faced with. So in conclusion, what the report says, the technologies already exist. These green technologies are not out there, it's not just up in the sky or the pie in the sky. They do really exist. But we say that we need the political will to help developing countries build the capacities to absorb these technologies and innovate for a more inclusive and sustainable future for us all. And this is the political will of everyone, especially those who own technologies. And we also say that developing countries need to enact timely innovation, industrial and energy policies to catch the green technological revolution early. We have seen in this report, because we have studied several other technological revolutions, and if you do not enter and capture these opportunities early on, the windows will close. So that's the message. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I wish to thank Ms. Sarimani for her presentation. I have the pleasure to invite the co-chairs of the STI Forum 2023. I have the pleasure to invite Her Excellency Ms. Mathu Joyini, Ambassador of South Africa to the United Nations in New York. Your Excellency, you have the floor, Madam.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I found that report very interesting, and indeed we need to catch that window before it closes. Honorable Ministers, Excellencies, distinguished representatives, I am pleased to address you today as one of the co-facilitators of the STI Forum, which will be taking place in May from the 2nd to the 5th, in about a month's time, 2 months' time. Together with my colleague, Ambassador Woodruff of the UK, we have been working closely with the Secretariat and the 10-member expert group to ensure we have a meaningful and successful forum. 2023 is a special year, as we heard this morning, a year when several key processes are being undertaken at the UN. Processes that are meant to deepen and preserve the multilateral nature of the UN. And really, these processes are meant to help us with the following: to collectively acknowledge that the world is changing rapidly, and the UN has a role to ensure that we make meaning of these changes and that we respond appropriately as the global community. Secondly, these processes are meant to acknowledge the many complex and interlocking challenges we are facing today, and those were discussed quite eloquently this morning. And the reality is that no one country is in a position to resolve or handle these challenges single-handedly. And I think thirdly, to recognize the need to come together to develop common solutions and approaches to address the challenges and also take advantage of the opportunities that they present. The one process that we are all anticipating and want to give due consideration to is the SDG Summit, which will be taking place in September this year, where we will review progress on all the SDGs. And of course, the summit will be followed by the Summit of the Future in 2024, where again, we have to take forward the SDGs and working together on the future we want. Other processes that we are undertaking at the UN this year are in preparation of the Summit of the Future, including the Global Digital Compact that was referred to, and I believe that we will be getting a briefing on the Global Digital Compact sometime in this session. So as we meet in this important session of CSTD, we should be having in mind the SDG Summit, the Summit of the Future, and we have to make sure that the developing countries and their agenda are well positioned, strategically positioned in both summits, in the two summits. Coming to the CSTD and the STI Forum, we know that they are both critical in the achievement of SDGs. They both provide guidance and catalyze effective partnerships that help to leverage the power of science, technology, and innovation to drive social and economic progress worldwide. At all times, we need to ensure the complementarity between the CSTD and the STI Forum. And stakeholders engaged in both processes need to work in this direction. And that is part of why I am here today. The CSTD focuses on STI policies and strategies that enable STI-led socioeconomic development. It is an intergovernmental forum of UN member states. At the CSTD, we engage in discussions, share best practices, and identify emerging issues related to STI. The CSTD also coordinates the work of the United Nations on the follow-up of the World Summit of the Information Society and the common vision and commitment to build a people-centered, inclusive, and development-oriented information society where everyone can create access, use, and share information. On the other hand, the STI Forum serves as a platform for diverse stakeholders, including, but not restricted to government representatives, to discuss STI practice and applications in the context of the SDGs. It brings together government officials, researchers, and innovators to share ideas, knowledge, and best practices on how to leverage STI for sustainable development. While the CSTD focuses on STI policy and practice development and learning, the STI Forum focuses on identifying technologies, addressing the SDGs, and promoting collaboration amongst all stakeholders. A key component of the activities of both is capacity building for STI for SDGs. The importance of closing the STI capacity gaps between developed and developing countries cannot be emphasized enough. Coming to the forum, it'll have three distinct segments. The main program, which is on the 2nd and the 3rd, on the 3rd and the 4th, the Africa STI Day, which is on the 2nd, just before the main program starts. And then on the 5th, we will have the summit on Global Summit on Solutions. The program is available on the website. I just want to share with you what we had in mind as we were putting the program together. We were guided by the principles to make sure that there's aliveness to the moment that we are in and the opportunities that this moment provides, that the program is inclusive, in particular to young people and women, and that in the program, we focus on practical solutions and make sure that all the engagements are real, that there's a strong focus on local action and giving examples at a local level, and that the program itself creates space for learning and sharing. And lastly, that we are able to reinforce the interlinkages and integration, especially in the processes at the UN. Some of those processes are referred to, including the HLPF, of course. A few words on the Africa STI. It will be the inaugural session of the Africa STI Day, and it will be held on the margins of the STI Forum, as I said, on the 2nd of May. The STI in Africa Day has two main purposes. Firstly, to serve as a vehicle for connecting the global community to cooperate, network, showcase, share experiences, and build strategic alliances, and where possible, set in motion concrete actions that advances Africa STI for SDGs priority. The second is to bring outcomes of the African Regional Science and Technology and Innovation Forum to the global STI Forum and vice versa, with a view to guiding facilitative actions on both ends. The theme of the STI in Africa Day is aligned with that of the African Regional STI Forum 2023, which is accelerating development and diffusion of emerging technologies for a green, inclusive, and resilient Africa. And it was held in Niamey, Niger, from the 26th to the 27th of February 2023. Excellencies, distinguished guests, to conclude, both the CSTD and the STI Forum could help by showcasing positive experiences in STI policy and practice, as well as through energizing mutual and collaborative policies in learning processes. Such processes are desperately needed in the post-pandemic era, as we face serious threats to multilateralism and general weaknesses in developing global solutions to multiplicity of challenges that we spoke about this morning, including the rising inequalities and decline in inclusivity. And as co-chair of the STI Forum, I look forward to the input that the deliberations of the CSTD this week can make to the forum's work in May. I thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. I now have the pleasure to invite the second co-chair of the STI Forum, His Excellency Mr. Thomas Woodruff, United Kingdom Ambassador to the UN Economic and Social Council, via remote link.
Chair, thank you very much indeed, Excellencies, colleagues. Good afternoon, good morning from New York. And thank you so much for inviting me to speak at this ministerial session on the role of science, technology, and innovation in accelerating the recovery from COVID-19 and implementing the 2030 agenda. And I'm just so sorry that I can't be with you in person, as my good friend and dear co-host, co-chair, Ambassador Joini is, but unfortunately, other matters have kept me in New York. Now, I wanted to say a few words about the STI Forum and then say a few words about the UK's approach to this agenda. Having just heard from Ambassador Joini, I'm going to try my hardest not simply to repeat a lot of what she said, but I would start by saying I very much wholeheartedly endorse the messages that she has just delivered, particularly around the need for collective working, collaboration, and to think how we can better join up perhaps the work of CTSD and the STI Forum in what is a particularly critical year for the development agenda. Now, of course, the UK is really very honoured indeed to co-chair with South Africa the 8th UN Science, Technology and Innovation Forum that will be taking place, as you've heard, in May in New York. And we are particularly keen that we build on the conversations and the outcomes of the debates and discussions that you've been having and you will continue to have at the CSTD, and that we think about how we can best integrate those into the STI Forum and use them to illuminate and illustrate the conversations that we will be having there. And that, as I say, that we are working collectively together to promote and advance the role of science and tech in delivering development progress in what is a particularly important year. Now, I'm sure all of you are familiar with the STI Forum, and certainly Ambassador Joini has just described it in some detail. I would just, I think, like to emphasize two points. One, the very multi-stakeholder nature of the forum. It convenes policymakers, the UN system, scientists, engineers, innovators, entrepreneurs, the private sector, youth representatives, and international organizations to find pragmatic solutions to the greatest global challenges that we're facing. And so, as co-chairs, we are committed to ensuring that the forum is inclusive, it is balanced, and most importantly, that it is impactful. The forum, and as Ambassador Joini has said, the program is now available, I believe, online, but the forum will include sessions that examine how to strengthen trust in science, how to build stronger research and funding partnerships, how to close the gender gap in science and tech, and how to ensure that digitization works for all. And the co-chair summary at the end will produce important science-based recommendations for both the high-level political forum in New York in July, but also critically, they will feed into the SDG Review Summit during High Level Week in September. And to that end, I would say, we very much welcome both your inputs and your participation throughout the forum. And as Ambassador Joini has just described, I think we'd particularly welcome your inputs and thoughts into the Science, Technology and Innovation in Africa Day, that first innovative day that very much Ambassador Joini has been driving, which will look to showcase and advance green, inclusive and resilient science, tech and innovation across the continent. And I think it's particularly important that we have those discussions at the forum this year. And I know that they will add considerable insights to our work going forward. Now, of course, as you know, 2023 is the midway point of the 2030 agenda. It is a critical year for responding to development challenges with pragmatic solutions. And for the UK, that means three things in particular. First, science and technology is critical to accelerating economic growth and competitiveness, and to tackling the major challenges of our time, including poverty, climate change, and health threats. However, it has to work for the poorest and most vulnerable. That means addressing the digital divide, investing in climate-focused infrastructure, and developing the data, tools, and evidence to attract investment into low-carbon growth opportunities. And UK initiatives, such as the Digital Access Programme, provide that inclusive and last-mile connectivity, digital literacy and skills, locally relevant content, and increased cyber security. Second, the UK wants to work closely with all of you to support an equitable recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic and to ensure that no one is left behind. As an example, the UK has financed and worked with partners to identify end-to-end solutions that enable affordable access to vaccines and treatments and manufacturing at scale. And we are working on new vaccines, drugs, and diagnostics through our product development partnerships and targeting disease that disproportionately affect developing countries. And we have also developed COVID-19 vaccines and treatments through CEPI and our COVID-19 Treatment Accelerator Partnership with the Wellcome Trust. And thirdly, we need a secure and collaborative approach to science that ensures low and middle income countries have access to knowledge and resources that can support improved resilience. And to further those aims in particular, the UK has just launched a new UK Department for Science, Innovation and Technology to progress global scientific and technological advancement and to accelerate progress on open science for global resilience and development. And we have also just recently announced our first international technology strategy to ensure open, responsible, secure, and resilient use of these technologies. And I'm delighted that the UK and South Africa have also just recently signed a science and tech partnership agreement, which I think points to both the very close cooperation between our two countries in this area, but also points very much to the heart of the STI Forum and that knowledge and research sharing that I've just spoken about. Now, of course, as we know, the rapid pace of change in science and technology has the potential to transform many aspects of our lives and fundamentally reshape our societies. Both of those things are urgently needed if we are to achieve the SDGs to the benefit of all. So I very much look forward to hearing your views and taking those, as well as your wider inputs to the UN STI Forum in May, and very much on behalf of both the co-chairs, on behalf of Ambassador Joini and myself, very much hope to see as many of you as possible in New York for the forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Woodruff, for your remarks, and thank you, Excellency Ambassador Joini, for your remarks as well. I now have the pleasure to invite Her Excellency Ms. Alia Ahmed bin Saif Al Thani, Chair of the 64th Commission for Social Development via video.
His Excellency Mr. Louis Khwan, Chair of the 26th Commission on Science and Technology for Development, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to be speaking at this session today. At the outset, please allow me to underscore the importance of the valuable collaboration between the Commission on Science and Technology and the Commission for Social Development. The Commission for Social Development is the primary United Nations body in charge of the follow-up and implementation of the Copenhagen Declaration and Programme of Action. It also serves as the main UN forum for global dialogue on social development issues, from reducing poverty to addressing homelessness to promoting decent work, to the role of digital technologies on social development and well-being of all. Allow me to thank Mr. Mansour Al-Quraishi, acting chair of the CSTD, for his participation in the side event on the impact of frontier technologies on employment and the implication for inclusive development and international cooperation during the 61st session of CSOCD. Digital technologies are transforming our societies at unprecedented speed, bringing many benefits. Digital technologies are opening up new job opportunities while enabling workers to work remotely and enjoy better work-life balance. Digital transformation can also promote inclusion of disadvantaged and marginalized groups. Digital platforms can be a stepping stone into the labor market and offer income-generating opportunities, including for women, young people, persons with disabilities, and migrant workers. Digital technologies are also improving access to basic services and social protection for marginalized and disadvantaged social groups. Pakistan has leveraged digital platforms to improve health coverage, provide targeted subsidies to farmers, and establish youth empowerment programs. Likewise, Uganda has launched its national single registry for social protection, a unified platform where information across all social protection programs is stored, analyzed, and reported to improve efficiency and consistency of public services. Many of the opportunities offered by new technologies will require supportive legislative and regulatory frameworks to benefit all. Gaps in labor rights and social protection coverage in the platform economy, for example, leaves workers vulnerable to shocks and income insecurity. Social protection systems and relevant regulatory frameworks need to adopt to provide protection to people in all forms of work in the digital era. Ladies and gentlemen, one needs to be digitally connected to take advantage of the new opportunities and benefits. Leaving no one behind means leaving no one offline. The good news is that 2/3 of the world's population is now online. However, 2.7 billion people remain offline, and disadvantaged and marginalized groups are overrepresented in the offline population. Governments need to close the digital divide by investing in infrastructure, improving access to infrastructure, affordability, digital skills, and awareness of the benefits of the internet and ICTs, especially for women and older persons. Many countries are taking action, including through partnerships with the private sector. Distinguished delegates, the digital transition should work for all and should put people first. We must work together to harness this digital transition through inclusive and transformative policies for sustainable development for all. I am certain our discussions will be invaluable steps in this direction, and I thank you.
I thank Her Excellency for her remarks. Let me now turn to our ministerial discussion. Before I invite the first speaker, I would like to request that interventions made in person to be kept to less than 10 minutes each, as we have many speakers. I now have the pleasure to invite Her Excellency, Ms. Maria do Rosario Sambo, Minister of Higher Education, Science, Technology, and Innovation of Angola. Ma'am, you have the floor.
Distinguished Chair, distinguished Director of Logistics, of Technology and Logistics of ANTAD, Honorable Ministers, all protocol observed. On behalf of the Ministry of Higher Education, Science, Technology and Innovation of Angola, and on my own, I address compliments to all participants in this Ministerial Roundtable and express our satisfaction for participating in this 26th session of the United Nations Commission on Science and Technology for Development. Science, technology, and innovation are certainly fundamental drivers for generating and sustaining increased productivity, and consequently constitute vital long-term levers for economic growth and prosperity. In the context of the 2030 Agenda, STI permeates all SDGs, being transversal to achieve several sectoral objectives and targets. Transforming changes through STI, together with the development of human skills and capabilities, among others, require a global partnership based on common and universal principles. The COVID-19 pandemic made clear the importance of STI as a strong instrument to overcome a global public health crisis and its relevance for achieving the SDGs in such a way that the lack of investment in STI by the public and private sectors constitutes a significant weak point for socioeconomic development and social well-being. The advent of the COVID-19 pandemic forced the governments to make efforts to decide on the best way to deal with the challenges that disease represented and would represent for the socioeconomic growth of their countries. The National Contingency Plan for the Control of the COVID-19 Pandemic in Angola demanded a generalized effort from the Angolan society for its fulfillment and success. The Angolan scientific community reacted promptly, providing technical and scientific support to the bodies responsible for implementing this plan. A technical scientific group was set up, made up of university professors, researchers, and specialists to produce relevant information based on available and up-to-date scientific evidence that would serve as recommendations and basis for decision-making. The gathering of the scientific community involving researchers and university professors from different Angolan and foreign institutions around a common objective was an added value to create the material basis for an effective response to the concerns raised by COVID-19 and for the future of research, technological development, innovation around major national health issues, with priority being given to strengthening laboratory capacities and systematic and automated recording of health data. We bring these elements to show the relevant contribution of STI to the response to situations of national and global crisis, which is a lesson to be learned for the future. On the other hand, the COVID-19 pandemic exposed the inability of many educational institutions, with special emphasis on higher education, to migrate to online education, and solved any doubts about the need for digital transformation of the education sector. The effects of the situation generated by the COVID-19 pandemic in higher education forced us to question current training practices, as well as the ways in which we have ensured teaching and learning, and how we should do it in the upcoming days. There is an increasing need to ensure teaching and learning beyond institutionalized times and spaces, to overcome the limitations of traditional methods of instruction and to make better use of the potential of information and communication technologies. In some African countries, such as Senegal, Tunisia, and Cote d'Ivoire, just to name a few examples, the pre-pandemic existence of a virtual university mitigated the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic on face-to-face teaching, having been possible to put its experience at service of other universities for design of online training devices. Specifically for science, digitization is changing the way research is conducted and disseminated, with increasing possibilities to create and use data, information, and knowledge So it is pertinent to talk about the digital transformation of science and innovation. In digital area, risk management must be considered as an integral part of science and innovation policy, considering how to make digital systems more reliable, including those based on artificial intelligence. On the other hand, digitization has a positive potential to promote collaboration, especially across borders, and improve the efficiency of science, of which open science is a good example. However, this positive potential faces some difficulties regarding its true usefulness in bringing scientific communities and scientists closer to the public in an inclusive process. Cooperation between states for economy and business, social and cultural, academic and scientific partnerships are essential to overcome the barriers that still persist, such as digital exclusion, digital illiteracy, security versus digital vulnerability, and the phenomenon of disinformation or information overload. Recognizing that the world still lives at different speeds to face the challenges of digital era, the slogan of leaving no one behind requires many countries to act. Providing policies and strategies for increasing access by citizens to information and communication technologies, for example, access to a computer or mobile phone connected to the internet. Implementing policies that make possible to overcome digital illiteracy, giving students early access to computers, but also providing training policies on ICTs for the most disadvantaged populations for economic, geographic, gender, or age reasons. Investing more and more in STEM areas to enable citizens to have high competence in terms of digital security to face threats, robberies, and kidnappings of goods and services. And finally, implementing training and disinformation prevention policies. The Angolan government has the white paper on information and communication technologies, the main strategic instrument for ICT, which condenses the government's vision for the 2018 to 2022 period, aimed at providing quality public services and support for strengthening the digital economy and information technology society. For the 2023 to 2027 period, the Angolan government intends to give more dynamism to the science, technology, and innovation sector to stimulate the creation and dissemination of knowledge in conjunction with a more dynamic and committed innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem oriented to the market, capable of attracting and retaining talent for the country's development, as well as strengthening and making the national innovation ecosystem more efficient, in line with sustainable development goals and with the STI African strategy. In conclusion, it is necessary to create greater synergy in cooperation for development with actors of national scientific systems and innovation ecosystems to support the economic diversification, to reinforce the scientific capacity of human capital and institutions, and provide for an increase in public and private expenditure and investment in research and innovation, indispensable for achieving multiple SDGs. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Now I give the floor to His Excellency, Mr. Per Gomez, Minister of Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology of the Gambia, represented in person by Mr. Muhtar Dabo, Deputy Permanent Secretary of the Ministry. You have the floor.
Chair, thank you, the Director Serimani, and the rest of the members of the High Table. Afternoon to the distinguished ladies and gentlemen present here. It is my honor to address today all of you on behalf of Honorable Minister Professor Per Gomez, Minister responsible for higher education, research, science, and technology of the Republic of the Gambia, on the crucial topic of the role of science, technology, and innovation in accelerating the recovery from the coronavirus disease and the full implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development at all levels, with a particular focus, of course, on the challenges facing developing countries such as the Gambia. The COVID-19 pandemic has ravaged the world in ways that were previously unimaginable. The virus has affected millions of lives and disrupted economies, health systems, and societies worldwide. In sub-Saharan Africa, the pandemic has highlighted many of the region's pre-existing challenges, including policy implementation challenges, and duplication of efforts from various development partners, a plethora of priorities, and a lack of focus on priorities of socio-economic relevance, and a lack of follow-up and follow-through beyond support to develop or review policies. However, the pandemic has also offered opportunities to rethink development efforts into the long-term future. To address these challenges, it is imperative that we recognize the vital role of science, technology, and innovation in accelerating the recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic and achieving sustainable development in sub-Saharan Africa. Science, technology, and innovation have the potential to transform societies and economies, creating new opportunities for growth and development while improving the lives of people the world over. In the fight against the pandemic, science has played a vital role in developing vaccines and other medical technologies that have helped curb the spread of the virus. The rapid development and deployment of the vaccines have shown us the transformative power of science, technology, and innovation, providing a ray of hope to millions of people worldwide. However, much more needs to be done to ensure that these vaccines and other medical technologies are accessible to everyone, regardless of their socioeconomic status or geographic location. Innovation, on the other hand, has enabled countries to adapt to the pandemic by developing new technologies and strategies that help to mitigate the effects of the pandemic. For instance, the use of digital technologies has allowed many African countries to continue providing essential services, such as education and healthcare, despite the pandemic's disruptions. To fully leverage digital technologies for pandemic recovery and achieving the SDGs, it is important to address the systemic weaknesses that the pandemic has exposed. This includes investing in education and training to build digital skills and competencies, ensuring that digital technologies are accessible to all and affordable by all. We must therefore strengthen digital infrastructure to enable development and effective operability of other digital tools, including digital health, digital financial inclusion, digital education, digital literacy, digital agriculture through farmers' platforms, digital energy, digital identity, to address inclusion of marginalized communities, and open data platforms to increase transparency and accountability in government and promote evidence-based decision-making. With the effective implementation of these tools, factoring local needs and cultural norms, we can in effect close the digital divide and accelerate social and economic progress. Our country still faces significant challenges in harnessing the power of science, technology, and innovation. The region is characterized by policy implementation challenges, duplication of efforts from various partners, and a plethora of policy priorities, a lack of focus on priorities of socioeconomic relevance, and a lack of follow-up and follow-through beyond support to develop or review policies. To address these challenges, there is need for a coordinated approach that involves all stakeholders, including governments, the private sector, civil society, and development partners. Such an approach should focus on building the necessary infrastructure, promoting innovation and entrepreneurship, investing in long-term capacity and capabilities of developing countries, build the skills and competencies of its youth through local TVET institutions, increase investment and collaboration in research and development, and strengthen the capacity of institutions responsible for developing and implementing policies. Moreover, it is crucial to ensure that policies and strategies are tailored to the specific needs of the region. These policies should prioritize socioeconomic relevance and be informed by evidence-based research. Additionally, there is need to ensure that policies and strategies are implemented effectively with clear follow-up and follow-through mechanisms in place to ensure accountability. In conclusion, Chair, the role of science, technology, and innovation in accelerating the recovery from the pandemic and achieving of the sustainable development goals cannot be overemphasized. To overcome the challenges facing the region, and the sub-Saharan African region, we need a coordinated approach that involves all stakeholders and prioritizes policies and strategies that are informed by evidence-based research and tailored to the specific needs of the region. We must ensure that all countries have access to the latest technologies and innovations, and that no one is left behind. With this approach, we can harness the transformative power of science, technology, and innovation and create a better future for all. I thank you all for your kind attention.
Thank you so much. Now I have the pleasure to invite His Excellency, Mr. Piman Salehi, Deputy Minister for Research, Ministry of Science, Research and Technology of Iran. You have the floor.
Thank you. In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful, Mr. Chairman, honorable ministers, Madam Secretary General, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. At the very outset, please allow me to appreciate UNCTAD Secretariat for the excellent arrangements. I would also like to appreciate all galaxy of thoughts gathered here to confer ideas on science and technology, especially focusing on their role on innovation in accelerating the recovery from the pandemic and the full implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development at all levels. In fact, the Commission is a suitable and timely forum for the discussion on very important issue that is science and technology for development. Mr. Chairman, Iran has been well known for its significant contributions to science and technology since ancient times. However, our country has experienced rather long gap throughout the last centuries. Fortunately, after the Islamic Revolution in 1979, great attention was paid to paving the road to better days by means of heavily investing in STI in Iran. In this regard, currently Iran has more than 3,200,000 university students, of which about 50% are female, and more than 750,000 students are active in postgraduate education. Approximately 30% of our faculty members are female scholars. In the last 2 decades, the Iranian government has advised and implemented various policies and programs to support the innovation and establishment of a technological ecosystem. Currently, more than 7,000 technological and knowledge-based companies are active in advanced technologies such as nanotechnology, biotechnology, cognitive science, and information and communication technologies. Moreover, 58 science and technology parks, 240 incubators, 61 science and technology funds, plus 55 private accelerators are part of the great achievement of our country in science and technology policy. Besides, there are numerous innovative startups that are growing and maturing in this technological ecosystem. Iran has witnessed great enhancement in global rank in terms of scientific publications. ranking first in West Asia and 15th in the world. The role of our highly educated women and girls in this growth is undeniable. Mr. Chairman, despite the severe sanction imposed against us, Iran was one of the few countries able to develop and produce different types of corona vaccines to meet part of its national needs. Several vaccine development projects using various technological platforms were carried out in Iran during this time. These vaccines were based on inactivated virus, recombinant proteins, viral vectors, and mRNA technologies. Though some of these domestically developed vaccines did not reach public use during the pandemic, they certainly paved the way to exploit the platforms in other applications like cancer immunotherapy and gene therapy too. Besides, such an effort needed novel intersectional partnership, which led to developing new biopharmaceutical ecosystems encompassing financial, regulatory, research and development, and manufacturing partners. This ecosystem, after its maturation, will be an invaluable tool for medicine developments in the future, including accelerated responses to the possible upcoming pandemics. Iran not only manufactured the needed instruments such as ventilators, oxygen generators, CT scans, and so on, but also exported them to many other countries. In spite of the aforementioned implications, we have never stopped our research, technology, and educational activities during pandemic by the help of our powerful infrastructure that had been provided for such circumstances. It's also noteworthy that Iran has had the least number of fatalities in the recent outbreak of coronavirus, leaving many very zero death toll days, as well as the fewest number of infected people. While the pandemic imposed quite a few obstacles for the Iranian society, it culminated in our growth in various fields such as electronic-based education. We seem to have entered a completely new phase of education, as we have noticed the significance of remote learning based on electronic platforms. Thus, we expect more attention to this type of education as a complement to traditional methods, even though the pandemic is nearly over. As a result, the following strategies have been employed by Iran's educational system. Development of hybrid and metaverse-based educational methods instead of fully separating virtual learning from attending in-person classes. Improving telelab and virtual lab infrastructure. Developing electronic simulators aiming at real experiencing at workshop atmosphere. Taking into consideration telelearning seriously through allocating certain budgets plus advising the required bureaucratic and technological infrastructure to officially support e-learning in universities. Therefore, in the post-COVID-19 era, our focus would be on transformation from traditional to hybrid educational system. The purpose of creating hybrid learning system is increasing the quality of education and active participation of students. To cope with the challenges left by the webinar-based technology, it is necessary to promote interactive education and equip classes with new technologies. Due to the past developments and lessons learned, investment in this field has been invigorated. Mr. Chairman, we strongly believe that knowledge production will improve vigorously the social welfare of the people. Hence, scholars should not be confined to certain boundaries, but they should belong to all humanity. Iran's Ministry of Science, Research and Technology believes that when border lines are lifted for scholars and scientists, merchants and tourists, the level of tension will be lessened significantly. Therefore, scientific diplomacy is certainly the last piece of economic, cultural, political, social, and security diplomacies. Knowledge, production, and consumption is the backbone to humans' shared interest and unity. Accordingly, the interests of all mankind are provided through the production of science and technology, and all people are stakeholders of the human knowledge pool. Regarding the development of science and technology, the approach of the Islamic Republic of Iran is sustainable development with a forward-looking view toward humans and the environment. In this regard, We welcome interactions and exchanges of science and technology with all interested countries and consider science and technology diplomacy as one of the key tools for international cooperation. Iran expressed its readiness to promote scientific and technological collaborations through the exchange of researchers and scientists, joint funding and sharing of infrastructures, as well as holding technology exchange programs among interested countries. Mr. Chairman, we are of the belief that to achieve 2030 agenda goals, especially at all levels, and to expedite the process of recovery from pandemic, science and technology play a crucial role that no one can turn a blind eye to the fact. Therefore, bearing in mind that achieving 2030 agenda and recovery from pandemic are priorities of all nations, particularly developing and the least developed countries, technology transfer should come into the international agenda to enable developing countries, particularly the least developed countries, to cope with the challenges. As it was said by His Excellency, Mr. Ban Ki-moon, the then UN Secretary General, global problems require global solutions. Our developed partners are encouraged to show more flexibility on technology transfer. Mr. Chairman, we believe that the UN can play a crucial role on technology transfer areas. In fact, political will of the countries, particularly developed countries, will facilitate the developing countries to cope with the challenges ahead, particularly in probable future pandemic and achieving the 2030 agenda goals. It comes through when it is accompanied by a suitable framework along with conducive enabling environment. Concluding my words, I would like to reiterate that among all cascading challenges, including recovery from pandemic and climate change, unilateral sanctions against UN Charter and international law has hindered the sanctioned countries of the kind to achieve Agenda 2030 goals. Therefore, states are strongly urged to refrain from promulgation and applying any unilateral sanctions. Thank you so much for your kind attention.
Thank you. I now have the pleasure to invite Her Excellency Ms. Leah Buendia, Undersecretary of the Ministry of Science and Technology of the Philippines. Ma'am, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, Excellencies, distinguished guests, delegates, and colleagues. It has been a little over 3 years since the coronavirus disease outbreak started, and COVID-19 brought unprecedented consequences, which includes the setback of efforts and progress made in the achievement of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Although there have been a lot of unknowns and uncertainties about COVID-19, the societies were quick to adopt digital technologies during the pandemic. Unfortunately, vulnerabilities, inequalities, and systemic weaknesses became very evident, if not aggravated. In order to leverage STI and digital technologies to address these local and global challenges, we must first acknowledge the gaps and available resources in our different economies. In the Philippines, we have harnessed STI through the use of existing technologies, including digital technologies, and repurposing all of this to respond to COVID-19. This includes the digital disease surveillance and modeling platform called FASTER, initially designed for dengue, measles, and typhoid, but was also used to monitor the spread of COVID-19. Another technology of the Department of Science and Technology is the RX Box, a telehealth device that can monitor the vital signs of patients with data that can be sent to medical doctors. These are being deployed in the local government units of the Philippines, especially in geographically isolated and disadvantaged areas where rural health units and their people have limited access to basic health care services. This became even more important as it was used to monitor COVID-19 patients to lessen the exposure of healthcare workers at the height of the pandemic. Lastly, we developed safe, swift, and smart passage system, or what we call the SPAS, a travel management system primarily intended to facilitate the safe travel of locally stranded individuals, returning overseas Filipinos, emergency travelers, and other travelers during the pandemic and in consideration of restrictions. The development of new and repurposing of existing innovative solutions could contribute to solving pressing issues. To utilize digital technologies, infrastructure and universal internet access should be put in place. Platforms, programs, and activities should be inclusive and targeted to eradicate the root causes of social and economic challenges. Governments especially should develop policies and projects that would help address vulnerabilities and inequalities. The public and private partners must be involved in the initiatives from ideation to implementation and evaluation. Assessment of stakeholders' needs and the barriers they are facing would be crucial in designing tailor-fit interventions, which in turn would also foster innovative partnerships among different sectors in the society. In order to sustain economic development and lessen the impacts of future pandemics to the achievement of 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, the Philippine government, through the Department of Science and Technology, is establishing the Virology and Vaccine Institute of the Philippines, which will build the country's capacity to develop and manufacture its own vaccines. Excellencies, the Philippines support the Ministerial Declaration of the high-level segment of the 2022 session of the ECOSOC and the 2022 high-level political forum on the sustainable development, particularly in recognizing the primary responsibility of governments to implement the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Governments should create enabling environment for different actors in the STI ecosystem to continuously develop technologies and innovations that could be beneficial to the communities. The Department of Science and Technology, for example, has supported various R&D institutions, academe, NGOs, startups, and micro, small, and medium enterprises through upskilling their workforce, providing funding and assisting them to invent and acquire technologies from research to operations. We do this through our Small Enterprise Technology Upgrading Program, or what we call SETUP, Technology Business Incubation Program, Startup Grant Fund Program, and the Science for Change Program, among others. The department then deploys outputs of R&D programs such as technologies to communities in need, especially those in geographically isolated and disadvantaged areas, through our community empowerment through S&T program, or what we call CEST. Such initiatives may be upscaled on a regional and international level with the help of CSTD and other international organizations. The Philippines further reaffirms its commitment to international cooperation and multilateralism, recognizing that to recover from the pandemic and also achieve SDGs 6, 7, 9, and 11, we must collectively determine the common as much as the individual issues that the countries are facing, most especially in the developing and least developed countries. Through international platforms such as the CSTD, we can benchmark on the best practices of each other and work together on finding solutions on the global challenges. Mobilize financial resources, share technical know-how, conduct foresight exercises, implement joint research and development, capacitate human resources, and transfer technologies. These are what we can do hand in hand. The Philippines supports the inclusion on the CSTD's future agenda, an item about national experience sharing by countries undertaking a voluntary review at the HLPF on the same year that would address the issues of leveraging STI to accelerate progress and move closer to the full implementation of the 2030 Agenda and to increase their resilience against future crises. The Philippines is open for collaborative programs in science, technology, and innovation. We believe that through our joint efforts, we can recover from the pandemic and accelerate the progress in the achievement of the 2030 agenda while leaving no one behind. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I give the floor to His Excellency Ambassador Bhattarai of Nepal, who will deliver a statement on behalf of Her Excellency Rekha Sharma, Minister for Communication and Information Technology of Nepal, who unfortunately could not join us today. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Chairman, Honorable Ministers, Madam Secretary General, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I'm delivering the statement on behalf of my minister, who has not been able to join us online due to some technical difficulty. It is indeed a great pleasure to speak at the Ministerial Roundtable of the 26th session of the Commission on Science and Technology for Development. The recent realization on the importance of science, technology, and innovation for accelerating the overall development of a nation, as well as for enhancing a quality of life, has stimulated countries to develop policies and programs aligning with the STI and Sustainable Development Goals. Along the same line, Nepal has closely considered the resolution adopted in the 25th session of the CSTD and has taken into account its recommendation in our national policies, plans, and actions. Mr. Chairman, we've been witnessing the present-day world gradually entering into a new era, characterized by rapid development and convergence of emerging technologies in physical, digital, and biological spheres. Digital technologies are proving itself as unbiased, equally accessible, and efficient tools for fulfilling individual needs for education, information, health services, social network platforms, and retail services, among others. In our national context, the issue of science, technology, and innovation has been addressed in the Constitution and periodic plans. Science, Technology, and Innovation Policy 2019, which is currently under implementation, aims to attain research-based quality education and encourage innovation in industry, infrastructure, and governance. Nepal has accorded priority to digital governance and is in the process of digitalizing service delivery to the people. The country is currently focused on improving IT infrastructure in education sector, service sector, and government services. In view of the important contribution that science, technology, and innovation can make to achieve SDGs, Nepal has prioritized the development of institutional, legal, and human resource capacities at all three levels of government. From our perspective, the overall mechanism of science, technology, and innovation needs to be dealt with ecosystem approach. Mr. Chairman, with a view to bridging technological divide and achieving SDGs, the international community and CSTD can assist and facilitate technology transfer between developed and developing countries, including LDCs, can create an enabling environment for meaningful support in strengthening STI infrastructure, and can arrange exchange programs on information and knowledge sharing on emerging technologies and digital economy. Nepal, being an LDC, which is set to graduate in 2026, has been facing huge obstacles in this regard. Nepal underlines the effective utilization of the UN Technology Bank for the LDCs for providing useful, transformative, and comprehensive technological support to Nepal. Nepal also seeks cooperation and assistance from the international community, especially in the area of infrastructure and human resource development, to meet its SDG targets. I thank you.
Thank you. Let me now turn to our remote speakers. I would like to request that remote speakers keep their intervention to less than 4 minutes to ensure that all participants can benefit from interpretations. I now have the pleasure to invite His Excellency Mr. Tulogano Sigoko, Minister for Communications, Knowledge and Technology of Botswana.
Thank you, Secretary General, Chair. Secretary General of UNCTAD, Ms. Rebecca Grainspan, the CSTD Chair, Mr. Louis Chill, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed a great pleasure for me to be part of these discussions, and I wish I were there physically, discussing the role of science and technology and innovation in the recovery from COVID-19 and the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Let me start from the onset, Chair, by noting that in 2019, the COVID-19 affected the whole world. Botswana was in lockdown for approximately 3 months during this period. Recognizing the imminent threat of the pandemic, His Excellency the President, Dr. Mokwetsi Eric Masisi, established a presidential task force which set about to direct the response of Botswana towards the pandemic. The key was clearly to achieve a low infection rate of our citizens. But I want to highlight 2 other important aspects of our response, which included the aggressive testing regime. And in addition, we included genome sequencing. Consequent to that, Chairman and Excellencies, Botswana was able to actually identify and discover the Omicron virus timelessly and alert the international community, for which our scientists have received awards. And we are most grateful for that. Excellencies, as a way forward, Botswana introduced 2 critical planning instruments. The first, the Economic Recovery and Transformation Plan, focused on rebuilding the economy and economic sectors and stimulating the economy for growth moving forward. The second was the reset priorities that the government set so as to respond to what the emerging issues from COVID. The reset agenda set about as its topmost priority to save Botswana from the COVID-19. Second, it set about to align the government machinery towards a more efficient delivery of the presidential agenda. Third was digitization, and a very key component of what we see in terms of the response to the virus moving forward. In addition, we had a fourth, which relates to value chain development and mindset change. I wish to focus on this reset agenda and highlight more especially the works that have been undertaken by the government towards the achievement of ensuring that we are in a position to respond more positively to future pandemics. Included in this reset agenda, the digitization agenda has a smart bots project, which project seeks about to build the necessary infrastructure countrywide to enable an inclusion of all our citizens and provide digital connectivity for all Botswana. To this end, we are running a project due for completion in 2025, which will connect all our settlements with settlements we have 500 or more people, and progress to date has been quite substantial. In addition to the digital infrastructure and connectivity of our citizens, Chair, we have also undertaken initiatives to make sure that government services are provided online. We have built capacity, in addition, to ensure that our citizens have the capacity in respect of both digitization, science, technology, and innovation. More specifically, our most critical efforts were directed towards ensuring that we provided the customer-facing services to our citizens and that they did not need to walk into ministries, departments to access services. In addition, key components of our economic sector, being education and health, have commenced work to build both the e-health and e-education systems for our future use by citizens, both in the health and economy. Key challenges that we've experienced have been reaching the remote areas of our country, and this has proved to be a fairly expensive endeavor to do so. In addition, it has been a challenge to lower the costs of connectivity. But in respect of both, I wish to note that Botswana has been most successful and particularly now enjoys a very high rating in terms of the affordability index for internet connectivity. Mr. Chair, another key challenge is cybersecurity. And government, through its cybersecurity strategy, which was actually developed in 2020, is making sure that it averts the risks that are associated with transacting online. Chairman, we're engaged in the public in terms of community and open science, demystifying the science through our National Science Week. We've been elevating research and innovation to ensure that it gets the necessary budgets and that we inspire and motivate our researchers and innovation as experienced in our recent National Research Awards recently. And towards conclusion, Mr. Chairman, I wish to say that Botswana is collaborating with international partners, and more specifically, we have a partner to develop vaccines, and with our facility now reaching a stage of completion and the project commencing towards occupation of our partners, to build vaccines and to provide for cancer treatments. This emphasizes the need for collaborative work in the future to actually promote science and technology in the response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Finally, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the CSTD for availing this opportunity and platform to share ideas and to help the developing and least developed countries in their response to the COVID-19. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency. Now I give the floor to His Excellency or Her Excellency, Mrs. Mayra Arrivederci Marin, Minister of Communications of Cuba, via video speech.
Excelentísima señora Rebecca Greenspan, Secretaria General del UNTAC, distinguidos ministros, viceministros y funcionarios gubernamentales. Las tecnologías de la información y la comunicación se han convertido en un catalizador para el desarrollo económico, político y social y actúan como un eje transversal potenciando los múltiples procesos de la sociedad. El impacto e impronta de las TIC quedó demostrado durante la crisis de la COVID-19, reconfigurando el escenario, lo cual devino en un acelerado proceso de la digitalización de muchas empresas y servicios, incluidos los sistemas de teletrabajo y teleconferencia, los servicios de atención médica, la educación, comercio y gobierno electrónico y otros servicios esenciales para la sociedad. La pandemia y el aislamiento social que se impuso generó que el mundo presencial se detuviera y el virtual se dinamizara. En Cuba, en este periodo, el tráfico creció en un estimado mensual de Internet de 3,2 veces y en la conectividad internacional de 1,9 veces. Asimismo, se duplicó la capacidad de almacenamiento y procesamiento de los centros de datos públicos, fundamentalmente en el desarrollo de gobierno digital y comercio electrónico. Por ello, hubo que impulsar el desarrollo de la infraestructura en aras de garantizar las demandas de servicios que tenía la población, alcanzando la cifra de más de 7,5 millones de personas que acceden a Internet, principalmente a través de la telefonía móvil. Proceso que se ejecutó en medio de la crisis mundial y bajo un recrudecido bloqueo económico, financiero y comercial impuesto por Estados Unidos contra Cuba, que continúa siendo el principal impedimento para un mejor flujo de información y un más amplio acceso a Internet y a las TIC. A pesar de esas constantes agresiones y presiones externas, se fortaleció el papel de la ciencia y la innovación en esta etapa. Se desarrollaron sistemas para procesar información y estadísticas y favorecer la comunicación con los ciudadanos, la utilización de modelos matemáticos para el pronóstico, enfrentamiento y evaluación del comportamiento de la pandemia y el uso de las técnicas de Big Data para evaluar la movilidad de la población durante la COVID-19. Todo ello como resultado de la gestión gubernamental sustentada en 3 pilares: la ciencia e innovación, la informatización de los procesos como soporte para facilitar la toma de decisiones y la comunicación social. En este nuevo contexto, Cuba continúa desarrollando la informatización de la sociedad y avanza hacia la transformación digital, proceso integrador que busca, con el concurso de todas las partes según sus roles y responsabilidades, lograr un proceso superior, aspirando a una sociedad digital inclusiva, participativa, basada en derechos, con una población dotada de habilidades y competencias que le permitan hacer un uso crítico, humanista y ético de los datos y las tecnologías, donde impere la cultura de la innovación en un ambiente digital seguro que contribuye al bienestar general y a alcanzar una sociedad próspera y sostenible. Bajo estos principios, se concibe una política de la transformación digital estructurada en ejes estratégicos en correspondencia con el Plan Nacional de Desarrollo Económico y Social en Cuba hasta el 2030, con el propósito de lograr el cumplimiento de los objetivos de desarrollo sostenibles. El desarrollo digital ha impuesto nuevos retos: lograr la inclusión universal en la economía digital, eliminar las desigualdades existentes entre los países y dentro de estos, hacer frente a las constantes amenazas para la ciberseguridad, el uso indebido de las TIC y de las plataformas digitales con el propósito de difundir noticias falsas y la tergiversación de la realidad contra cualquier Estado con fines políticos y como pretextos para la amenaza o uso de la fuerza. Constituyen desafíos para revertir por la comunidad internacional a fin de lograr la consecución de los ODS. Excelencias, los grandes retos que el orden mundial actual ha generado para el mundo en desarrollo alcanzan su expresión más aguda en estos tiempos de crisis sanitaria, climática, energética, alimentaria, de escala de tensiones geopolíticas y de formas renovadoras de dominación y hegemonía que, sin dudas, han puesto en riesgo los discretos progresos alcanzados en la implementación de la Agenda 2030. Revertir dicho escenario debe ser un compromiso de la comunidad internacional. El desarrollo científico-técnico está hoy monopolizado por un club de países que acaparan la mayoría de las patentes, las tecnologías de los centros de investigación y promueven el drenaje de talentos de nuestros países. Entre las prioridades de trabajo de la presidencia cubana del Grupo de los 77 más China durante el 2023, abogaremos por el uso de la ciencia, la tecnología y la innovación como motores del desarrollo sostenible de nuestras naciones. En este espíritu, convocaremos a una cumbre de jefes de Estado y Gobierno sobre los retos actuales del desarrollo, el papel de la ciencia, la tecnología y la innovación, que tendrá lugar en La Habana los días 15 y 16 de septiembre. Cuba seguirá profundamente comprometida con el propósito de fomentar y alcanzar sociedades más armoniosas, inclusivas y prósperas. Nuestro país interpreta su compromiso con la Agenda 2030 como un compromiso al desarrollo sostenible de todas las naciones, y entendemos que solo desde el multilateralismo, la cooperación internacional, la solidaridad y la búsqueda de soluciones concertadas ante los desafíos que enfrentamos, podamos avanzar en la agenda global para el desarrollo sostenible. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. I now invite Her Excellency Ms. Anda Chaksha, Minister for Education and Science of the Republic of Latvia, via video.
Dear ministers, dear CSTD and national representatives, countries today are making tireless efforts to recover from COVID-19 pandemic. Science and innovation have played essential roles in providing a better understanding of the virus and its transition, and in developing hundreds of candidate therapeutics and vaccines over a very short period. Digital technologies have enabled large parts of the economy and society to continue to function, mitigating the impact of COVID-19. Summing up, the COVID-19 crisis has triggered an unprecedented mobilization of the science and innovation community, accelerated the digital transition in all fields, and highlighted the role of science in evidence-making. The post-pandemic period is a unique opportunity to maintain and advance these scientific and digital developments. For example, further research is needed on the long-term impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on well-being and health of people, in particular on mental health of children and young adults. In global emergencies like the COVID-19 pandemic, open science policies can remove obstacles for the free flow of research data and ideas, and thus accelerate the pace of research critical to combating the disease. To leverage STI and digital technologies for accelerating recovery from the pandemic and achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, follow-up studies must be conducted to inform policymaking and to address the weaknesses revealed by the pandemic. During 2020 and 2021, Latvia supported a state research program aimed at tackling the impact of COVID-19, and the results of the program are considered in developing further research programs. This year, Latvia will launch several state research programs, investing €7.3 million with relevance for the Sustainable Development Goals, including programs on transformative processes in education, on infectious disease, on social cohesion, biodiversity in the context of climate change, and bioeconomy in the context of soil and water use. Latvia also supports the increasing uptake of open science practices, which were key for accelerating the pace of research to combat COVID-19. The Latvian Open Science Strategy for 2021-2027 foresees open access publishing for all state-funded research, fair research data, and support for citizen science. Latvia shares the results of its research programs in European partnerships, in particular Biodiversa Plus in the field of biodiversity, Water for All in water resources, driving urban transition in transformation of city life, and clean energy transition partnership, as well as other upcoming partnerships. Latvia sees the present moment as an opportunity to strengthen international research collaboration, including particularly with Ukrainian researchers. Latvia has put measures in place to ensure Ukrainian researchers currently residing in Latvia can continue work via involvement in Latvian research projects and institutions. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. I now give the floor to Her Excellency Ms. Leokadi Ndakayisaba, Minister of Communication, Information Technology and Media of Burundi. Excellency, you can proceed.
Excellence, Madame la Secrétaire générale de la SUNCED, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs les chefs d'État et de gouvernement, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs les ministres, distingués participants, Mesdames et Messieurs. Avant tout, remercions le Tout-Puissant pour nous avoir permis de nous retrouver en ce jour si solennel pour prendre part aux travaux de la présente session dont le thème retenu pour cette année est opportun eu égard au contexte difficile de post-COVID-19 depuis une année. C'est donc avec plaisir et grande satisfaction que je me retrouve parmi vous au nom du gouvernement du Burundi et à mon nom propre pour qu'ensemble, nous puissions prendre des résolutions fermes qui nous permettront tous ensemble et de façon équitable d'amplifier le rôle des technologies numériques sur le rôle de la science, de la technologie et de l'innovation dans l'accélération de la reprise après la maladie à coronavirus COVID-19 et la mise en œuvre intégrale du programme de développement durable à l'horizon 2030 à tous les niveaux. Distingués participants, Mesdames et Messieurs, les technologies numériques et les innovations ont été incontestablement, voire même une révolution majeure de notre époque, car ayant permis pour la première fois dans l'histoire de l'humanité la libre circulation de l'information, des idées et de la connaissance de tout en s'affranchissant des contraintes spatiales et temporelles. Les technologies numériques nous ont ouvert des perspectives inespérées en matière d'intégration de l'économie mondiale et mieux encore d'échanges d'interaction et d'intégration pour nos communautés et par conséquent, elles nous permettent d'aborder différemment la résolution des problèmes de développement avec de meilleures possibilités pour l'atteinte des objectifs de développement durable. À titre illustratif, la réalisation de l'objectif 9 qui consiste à bâtir une infrastructure résiliente, promouvoir une industrialisation durable qui profite à tous et encourager l'innovation, plus précisément la cible 9.c des ODD. Une infrastructure et des services TIC efficaces et abordables ont permis à notre pays de participer à l'économie numérique et d'accroître de manière générale notre bien-être économique et notre compétitivité. La plupart des pays en développement comme le Burundi avons enregistré des progrès impressionnants dans la réalisation de l'ODD 9, ce qui a de véritables incidences dans les domaines de l'inclusion financière, de la réduction de la pauvreté et de l'amélioration de la santé, et le cas le plus illustratif est la gestion efficiente de la pandémie COVID-19 grâce aux outils et technologies numériques. Mon pays, le Burundi, a pris le devant en ce qui concerne la concrétisation du thème choisi pour cette année, car, en effet, nous avons fourni beaucoup d'efforts en déployant un des réseaux large bande le plus dense d'Afrique, plus de 2000 km de fibres optiques déployées, permettant un maillage à fibre optique complet sur l'ensemble du territoire du pays, en promouvant un climat des affaires assez favorable dans le secteur des TIC, avec des tarifs de communication les plus compétitifs de la sous-région et notamment les prix de la connectivité Internet et haut débit. Avec un taux de pénétration des abonnés mobiles approchant les 60% au Burundi, cela a boosté le secteur financier mobile dans les zones rurales avec impact positif au regard de l'engouement de ces services par nos concitoyens. Dans la même vision d'accès universel, le gouvernement du Burundi a mis en place un fonds de services universel depuis octobre 2017 et dont le principal objectif est de permettre un accès universel des services et solutions TIC dans les zones rurales et enfin, avec l'appui de l'UIT, le Burundi s'est doté d'une stratégie nationale large bande déjà validée. Distingués participants, mesdames et messieurs, malgré ces apports indéniables des technologies numériques, nous ne devons pas perdre de vue l'arbre qui cache la forêt, à savoir les disparités, les fractures et les fossés numériques entre pays et au sein des pays. Les technologies numériques se situent donc au cœur de la problématique de l'intégration et du développement, et nous devons arrêter des stratégies pour réaliser la transition sociale juste vers le développement durable. En effet, dans des pays comme le Burundi, jusqu'à plus de 70% de nos populations vivent en zone rurale, donc des populations à faible revenu et avec une faible culture numérique, et donc exposées à rater le train de la 4e révolution industrielle en marche. Pour y remédier et pour réaliser la transition socialement juste vers le développement durable, il est donc urgent de faire jouer la solidarité numérique au sein de la communauté mondiale, de penser à un fonds mondial pour le numérique, de transformer la fracture numérique en opportunité numérique et de fonder ainsi la solidarité numérique sur des intérêts réciproques, d'accroître des investissements sur les nouvelles technologies numériques orientées sur la simplification d'accès aux soins et diagnostic en santé, rendre accessibles plutôt les technologies numériques liées à l'intelligence artificielle, pouvant améliorer et accroître des rendements et conservations agricoles, gestion et prévention des catastrophes naturelles, etc. De mettre en place des mécanismes de transfert des technologies et de transfert des compétences liées à l'usage des métadonnées dans les pays en développement pour améliorer et optimiser les précisions de nos politiques et programmes. Et ces solutions ne seront efficaces que si nous parvenions à outiller davantage nos services publics de ces technologies numériques pour vaincre et éradiquer la pauvreté en boostant les domaines clés de nos pays, que sont les domaines de l'agriculture, de la santé, de l'éducation, de l'énergie, de l'environnement et en accroissant l'inclusion financière. Distingués participants, mesdames et messieurs, je ne saurais clore mon propos sans remercier à tout un chacun et à contribuer à la tenue de ces travaux et à vous souhaiter une bonne continuation des débats et échanges qui vont sans aucun doute déboucher sur des bonnes recommandations. Vive la coopération mondiale numérique, vive les technologies numériques pour le bien-être de nous tous. Je vous remercie.
Thank you. Now I invite His Excellency Dr. Srivari Chandraska, Vice Minister, Ministry of Science and Technology of India.
Excellency, thank you so much, His Excellency, Mr. Mohammedo, all the excellencies, the ministers present there, the fellow ministerial speakers, and all other participants. I'm very delighted to be participating here on behalf of our Honorable Minister. Science and technology and innovation have played a very critical role in the response to the COVID-19 pandemic, and it will continue to play an essential role in the recovery phase as well. I'm also very happy to share, as mentioned in the opening remarks, India is now ranked at 46th position of the 166 economies in the Frontier Technologies Readiness Index. India remains the greatest overperformer, ranking at 67 positions, better than GDP per capita would suggest. India also has impressive performance in terms of R&D and industry activity, ranked at 4 and 22 positions respectively. The STI can contribute to several aspects of our recovery, including improving healthcare, supporting the economic growth, and strengthening the social resilience. Development and distribution of COVID-19 vaccines has been an exemplary role model from India. Innovative technologies of mRNA vaccines have been developed to provide a rapid response to the pandemic. Moreover, COVID also has helped to enhance the public health surveillance and monitoring systems to better detect and respond to future outbreaks. Also, we realize technology can be used to develop sustainable solutions that help achieve the SDGs. For example, renewable energy technologies can reduce the carbon emissions and improve access to clean energy. India has nearly achieved the target of 175 gigawatts by 2022 for renewable energy solutions. Data is also very critical for all of us in tracking the progress in sustainable development goals, but many countries lack the reliable data collection and analysis systems. The science, technology, and innovation can help by developing new tools and methods for collecting, analyzing, and disseminating the data on development indicators. Promoting the innovation and entrepreneurship has been the key of India's success. We have many technology business incubators which support the startups in deep tech, AI, machine learning, health tech, and Internet of Things. Improving the access to education has been on the top of the agenda. Many educational institutes currently in India have resorted to the use of virtual reality technologies to create immersive learning experiences that enable students to visualize the concepts and gain a better understanding of complex topics. Healthcare is another important target, the Sustainable Development Goal number 3. India faces a range of healthcare challenges, including high rates of communicable diseases and maternal and child mortality. Teleconsultations, telemedicine, mobile health applications, and other digital tools have been effectively used to mitigate these challenges. Also, supporting the sustainable infrastructure development has been an important parameter of India's STI. We have been using to develop sustainable infrastructure for energy efficiencies, office space and malls, sustainable transportation solutions, smart cities, etc. The clean water and sanitation has been one important goal of SDG 6, and our science, technology, innovation has helped to improve access to clean water and sanitation by developing new technologies for water treatment and management, as well as improving the efficiencies and sustainability of water and sanitation systems. The nanotechnology has been effectively used in this sector. India is aware of the climate action, and we are very proactive in this sector. Climate modeling technologies have been used to predict the impact of climate change on different regions and ecosystems, which helped our policymakers to make informed decisions to mitigate the effects of the climate change. Also, the COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted the concept of One Health, where science and technology innovations have played important drivers to further integrate both human health and planetary health. Also, Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi ji, has always advocated one Earth, one planet, one future has been our charter, and we committed to this. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I give the floor to His Excellency, Mr. Benjamin Abulado Matukurena Castillo, President of National Council for Science, Technology and Innovation of Peru.
Muchas gracias, distinguido presidente y distinguidos participantes todos. La pandemia del COVID-19, a la cual se han agregado las crisis climáticas y la del costo de vida, han causado graves perjuicios en los ámbitos sanitario, económico, social y político, afectando de manera desproporcional a países en desarrollo como el Perú. Además, esta desigualdad se ha manifestado en la presente etapa de recuperación. En ese escenario, la ciencia, tecnología e innovación juegan un rol crucial para acortar brechas y avanzar hacia la recuperación y desarrollo inclusivo sin dejar a nadie atrás, como señalan los documentos de la CSTD. Para el Perú, es claro que los países deben diseñar e implementar estrategias nacionales para generar capacidades tecnológicas y aprovechar la revolución digital que viene modificando radicalmente la manera de producir, intercambiar, comunicarse, trabajar, educarse, curarse y entretenerse, entre otras facetas de la vida social. Conforme con esto y bajo la premisa de que la CTI nos ofrece un atajo o camino corto para el desarrollo sostenible, se viene culminando la elaboración de la Política Nacional de Ciencia, Tecnología e Innovación 2023-2030, la cual plantea 6 objetivos que se alinean con áreas estratégicas que esencialmente contribuyen con el cumplimiento de los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible. Entre estos objetivos queremos destacar el de la promoción de la generación y transferencia de conocimiento científico y tecnológico, la promoción de la innovación, el emprendimiento tecnológico, el potenciamiento del talento humano orientado a las actividades de ciencia, tecnología e innovación, y el incremento de la infraestructura, el equipamiento y el financiamiento para la CTI. La naturaleza transversal de la CTI hace que ésta contribuya al logro de todos los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible. La política en curso nos ofrece el marco de actuación necesario para reorientar las intervenciones específicas. En ese sentido, este año hemos iniciado la implementación de la fase 1 de un programa para mejorar los servicios del Sistema Nacional de Ciencia, Tecnología e Innovación, cuyo presupuesto asciende a $375 millones. En esta primera fase, los servicios a mejorar se enfocan en la generación de investigadores altamente competitivos, fortalecimiento de laboratorios, atracción de investigadores peruanos o extranjeros que trabajan en otros países, financiamiento de proyectos de investigación y desarrollo estratégicos, entre otros. Asimismo, se han definido áreas estratégicas, incluyendo la adaptación y mitigación al cambio climático, la valoración y uso sostenible de la diversidad biológica, que es una característica peculiar, importante de nuestro país, la economía circular, la salud, la seguridad alimentaria, las energías renovables y las tecnologías de información y comunicación. En el Perú estamos haciendo esfuerzos para alcanzar el desarrollo sostenible de la mano de la ciencia, tecnología e innovación, y esperamos que se creen sinergias y cooperación entre los países y foros como este para acelerar ese proceso. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. I now invite His Excellency Mr. Xavier Paz, Undersecretary of Higher Education, Science, Technology and Innovation of Ecuador.
Hola, muy buenos días. Quisiera antes confirmar si es que logran escucharme y ver bien. Hola.
Yes, you can proceed.
Muchas gracias. Un extenso saludo, señor presidente, miembros de los países de la Comisión de Ciencia y Tecnología para el Desarrollo de Naciones Unidas, UNCTAD. Reciban un cordial saludo de parte de la Secretaria de Educación Superior, Ciencia y Tecnología e Innovación del Ecuador y de su máxima autoridad, la señora Andrea Montalvo. Y es un gusto poder compartir algunas líneas del gobierno del Ecuador y participar en este espacio y formar parte de la 26ª sesión de la Comisión de Ciencia y Tecnología para el Desarrollo de Naciones Unidas. Muy buenos días desde Ecuador, Sudamérica. Bueno, la Comisión Económica para América Latina indica que la crisis provocada por la pandemia o enfermedad de coronavirus golpeó a la economía mundial cuando ya estaba en problemas estructurales y que comprometían su capacidad de crecimiento y estabilidad. Fue un choque de grandes proporciones en una trayectoria que enfrentaba dificultades crecientes en los planos económico, político y ambiental. Por eso la respuesta de la crisis no debe ser una restauración, consideramos que debe ser un esquema de reconstrucción, entendida como una superación de los problemas de la trayectoria anterior. Como ustedes bien conocen, en nuestros países en América Latina, las distintas deficiencias estructurales se ha evidenciado y exponenciado los problemas ya existentes como el acceso a los sistemas de salud, la conectividad, el comercio electrónico y la seguridad ciudadana. América Latina y el Caribe se encuentran en una situación de rezago en cuanto al acceso de tecnologías digitales y al uso de ellas. Se trata de un rezago muy grave porque estas tecnologías definen la competitividad y resultarán necesarias en gran parte del empleo que se creará en el futuro. En el marco de acelerar la recuperación después de la pandemia del COVID-19 y la plena implementación de la Agenda 2030 para el Desarrollo Sostenible a todos los niveles, se evidencia que la transformación digital es un pilar fundamental para alcanzar el bienestar social y para lo cual es imperativo definir la gobernanza que promueve el acceso a la información y productos científicos de manera abierta, democrática y transparente, con miras a la reducción de brechas de ciencia, tecnología, innovación y que beneficia a todas las personas sin dejar atrás a los países en desarrollo. Nuestra propuesta es desarrollar un plan nacional de la economía de los conocimientos que promueva la eficiente articulación de todos los distintos actores del ecosistema de ciencia, tecnología e incluso saberes ancestrales, que es parte de nuestra identidad como países latinos. En el Ecuador se ha identificado que el enfoque que se da a la investigación no aporta precisamente a la solución de problemas, sino que se centran en cumplir métricas orientadas a acumular publicaciones por parte de las instituciones de educación superior y de los institutos de investigación promovidos por los entes rectores de ciencia, tecnología e innovación. De allí que esta problemática afecta a la comunidad académica, científica y a la sociedad en general, y conforme al último reporte del Global Innovation Index, Ecuador ha retrocedido desde el año del 2020 a raíz de la COVID-19. Los países desarrollados tomaron la delantera y eso evidencia la necesidad de desarrollar mejores condiciones para el desarrollo de la ciencia y la innovación. Estamos completamente comprometidos en que no solamente la investigación quede en distintas publicaciones, sino que exista una adecuada transferencia de conocimiento hacia los problemas estructurales de nuestra sociedad. Bajo este contexto, la Secretaría Nacional de Educación Superior, Ciencia y Tecnología del Ecuador se encuentra trabajando ya en el Plan Nacional que refleje precisamente el ecosistema articulado y orquestado de todos los actores de ciencia, tecnología, innovación y saberes ancestrales, cuyos principales objetivos, en donde también se convoca a la comunidad internacional el apoyo que nos pueda ayudar en generar conciencia y conocimiento de la comunidad académica y científica sobre los principios de la ciencia abierta, unas adecuadas métricas e indicadores para la apertura de datos. Generar líneas de investigación en materia de ciencia abierta del país y la región y los principios de la ciencia abierta para la mejora continua de los indicadores de ciencia, tecnología e innovación. Y por último, consolidar una comunidad académica, científica integrada con el sector privado y el sector público, que estemos interesados por implementar prácticas de ciencia abierta en los procesos de investigación e innovación. En este sentido, la Secretaría de Educación Superior, Ciencia, Tecnología e Innovación, CENESID, se ha comprometido a construir una política nacional de ciencia abierta direccionada a incrementar el intercambio de conocimientos de ciencia, tecnología e innovación hasta el 2025. Creemos que la COVID-19 nos ha traído oportunidades para fomentar de manera intencionada e intensa la ciencia y la innovación con enfoque de género, con mayor acceso de mujeres a la ciencia y proyectos liderados por ellas. Segundo, como país, como uno de los mejores ecosistemas medioambientales del mundo, enfocados en temas de cambio climático. Y finalmente, al reconocernos como una nación multicultural, la integración de los saberes ancestrales. Este compromiso está vinculado con instrumentos internacionales de planificación como la Agenda 2030 para el Desarrollo Sostenible, específicamente con la meta de mejorar la cooperación regional e internacional norte-sur, sur-sur y triangular en materia de ciencia, tecnología e innovación y el acceso a estas y aumentar el intercambio de conocimientos en condiciones mutuamente convenidas, incluso mejorando la coordinación entre los mecanismos existentes, en particular de Naciones Unidas y mediante un mecanismo mundial de facilitación de la tecnología. Muchas gracias por su atención.
Muchas gracias. Thank you so much. Now I give the floor to Ms. Alison Schweier, Acting Science and Technology Advisor to the Secretary of State, Department of State, United States of America. We can't hear you. Can you check your sound, please?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. I apologize. Thank you so much, Chair. Ministers, distinguished delegates, and colleagues. I would first like to commend the Chair, Vice Chairs, and organizers for the outstanding agenda, and thank ITU Secretary General Doreen Bogdan-Martin for her continued leadership on these issues and her insightful remarks this morning. Our collective acknowledgement that science, technology, and innovation are essential for development provides us a tremendous opportunity to use this forum for strategic planning, sharing lessons learned and best practices, and providing foresight about critical trends. As always, the United States looks forward to the in-depth and expert-led discussions throughout the week. The United States asked for the floor today to emphasize our belief that UN members must act with renewed focus to uphold the purposes and principles enshrined in the UN Charter as fundamental in creating the conditions for science, technology, and innovation to flourish and in turn benefit all people. This is about the future for people, the planet, prosperity, peace, and partnership, leaving no one behind, and overcoming the many distinct and overlapping crises that we face together. We must be ambitious and transformative and lay out the vision for the future. In the 2022 United States National Security Strategy, President Biden recommitted to work together with international partners to confront today's shared challenges and advance achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, by 2030. The United States voices our full support for the 2030 Agenda because the SDGs are, at their heart, about expanding economic opportunity, caring for our planet, good governance, protecting human rights, and ensuring no one is left behind, particularly individuals from marginalized communities and emerging economies. As a universal framework for global development and to improve the lives of citizens around the world, the 2030 Agenda and the SDGs are a vital part of the US commitment to seek a free, open, prosperous, and secure international system. Furthermore, the SDGs are integrated, indivisible, and interlinked. Thus, the promise of the agenda cannot be met by focusing on only a few of the goals and selectively ignoring the SDGs related to human rights and environmental sustainability. The United States is committed to inclusion, transparency, the rule of law, human rights, inclusive and sustainable economic growth, gender equality, climate and environmental sustainability, and harnessing the power of science, technology, and innovation at home and abroad. The linchpin for accelerating the achievement of the SDGs by 2030 will be innovation, and our discussions this week offer a crucial opportunity for member states to commit to the practices and policies that enable it. We welcome Secretary General Bogdan-Martin's proposed Digital Day during the upcoming SDG Summit and believe it will be a timely and important venue to highlight the activities happening throughout the UN system in leveraging digital technologies to advance the SDGs and stimulate opportunities for greater partnership among stakeholders. The need for innovative approaches has been heightened by the complex and compounding challenges we face, from the COVID-19 pandemic to the climate crisis, rising global poverty and inequality, threats to democracy and human rights. and increasing number of humanitarian crises, rising food and energy prices, global supply chain disruptions, and Russia's ongoing war against Ukraine, which have led to the reversal or stalling of development gains over the past 2 decades. This speaks to the urgency to reverse the negative trends and enable renewed global partnership to accelerate SDG implementation, utilizing STI breakthroughs that steer towards transformative and systemic change, while also addressing the gaps and challenges. Together, we can shape the global evolution of science and technology in a manner consistent with our shared values to accelerate progress on the SDGs. Like the SDGs themselves, they must integrate and mutually reinforce the social, economic, environmental, and governance goals across the agenda. Thank you. I look forward to this week, and I yield the floor.
Thank you. This concludes my list of remote speakers for the ministerial discussion. Let me now turn to the general discussion. I would ask that intervention be kept short, 3 minutes each. I will give priority to requests from the floor, and if time permits, I will give the floor to those attending remotely. The floor is now open, and I will therefore avail myself of the opportunity to call on the following delegates that already have asked for the floor. His Excellency, Mr. Idris Al-Khanjari, Ambassador and Permanent Representative of Oman. Sir, you have the floor.
شكرا السيد الرئيس. أصحاب المعالي والسعادة الحضور الكريم، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. إنه لمن دواعي سرورنا المشاركة في أعمال القمة 26 التي تتخذ العلوم والتكنولوجيا من أجل التنمية محورا لها، وتأتي في إطار الجهود المستمرة لمواكبة المستجدات في هذه المجالات الحيوية المتسمة بالتغير المتسارع، وما أثمرته من ابتكارات واختراعات أثرت تأثيرا جذريا في حياة المجتمعات الإنسانية على الأصعدة كافة، سواء كانت اجتماعية أو فكرية أو معرفية أو اقتصادية. وتكمن أهمية هذه القمة في كونها تنعقد في الوقت الذي يشهد فيه العالم تغيرا متسارعا بل ومحموما في إنتاج التقنيات الصاعدة التي أخرجتها الثورة الصناعية الرابعة واقتنائها، كما ويحاول فيها العالم إعادة البناء بشكل أفضل بعد وباء كوفيد-19، إذ تعد هذه التقنيات المتقدمة واحدة من أبرز نتائج البحث العلمي المتخصص، فما يشهده العالم من تطورات غير مسبوقة وبوتيرة عظيمة تتسارع في مجالات الذكاء الاصطناعي والتعلم الدقيق للآلة وإنترنت الأشياء والبيانات الضخمة والمدن الذكية والتقنية الحيوية وعلم الوراثة التي أصبحت اليوم المحرك الرئيس للاقتصاد العالمي. كل هذا يدفعنا نحن والأعضاء إلى المضي قدما معا بالتعاون والتكامل لتحقيق إنجازات ملموسة في هذه المجالات لخدمة شعوبنا الساعية للتقدم والازدهار، وللمساهمة في بناء اقتصاد قادم على المعرفة في جميع أنحاء العالم. السيدات والسادة، كما هو معروف أن الوباء قد سلط الضوء على أهمية تطوير تكنولوجيا المعلومات والابتكار لرفاهيتنا وبقائنا، إلا أنه كشف أيضا عن التحديات فيما يخص الإطار القانوني والاختلافات في القدرات والوصول إلى التكنولوجيا، فضلا عن المؤسسات غير الفعالة والتي غالبا ما تعاني من نقص التمويل، مما يشير إلى الحاجة لتطوير أنظمة العلوم والتكنولوجيا والابتكار لدينا. وهذا يحتم علينا التعاون والاندماج في المجالات العلمية والبحثية ذات الاهتمام المشترك حتى نتمكن من الحصول على مساهمات ملموسة على المستوى العالمي. لقد أدى الوباء إلى تسريع التحول الرقمي بغض النظر عن آثاره المعترف بها الآن الإيجابية أو السلبية، إذ كان هذا التحول شريان حياة للكثيرين، كما أتاح الوباء الابتكار في الأدوية واللقاحات والتكنولوجيا الحيوية والتقنيات الرقمية والذكاء الاصطناعي، وسلط الضوء على الدور المهم للتقنيات الرائدة، وعزز من الاكتشافات العلمية وسبل التعاون والمشاركة، مما أدى إلى تعزيز العلم المفتوح. ومع ذلك فإن عدم المساواة في الوصول إلى التكنولوجيا ترجمت أيضا إلى عدم المساواة في الوصول إلى التعليم أو الخدمات الأساسية الأخرى أو فرص كسب العيش. واحدة من العديد من أوجه عدم المساواة التي كشف عنها الوباء هي الفجوة الرقمية، فما يقارب من نصف سكان العالم لا يزالون خارج نطاق الوصول للإنترنت، وفي أقل البلدان نمواً يمكن لأقل من 20% من سكان العالم الوصول للإنترنت. السيدات والسادة، بناء قواعد بيانات مشتركة ومتكاملة لتعزيز مشاركة الخبرات والمعدات المتوفرة في الدول الأعضاء وإتاحتها للجميع سيسهل التواصل بين الباحثين، وسيبني الشراكات وشبكات التعارف، وسيزيد من الاستفادة إلى أقصى حد من كل ما هو متاح في بلداننا مجتمعة لتمكين الباحثين من التعاون في مشاريع بحثية وابتكارية محددة تؤدي إلى نتائج يمكن ترجمتها إلى منتجات فعلية يحتاجها العالم. نؤمن أن جهودنا المشتركة يمكن أن تعزز القدرات الوطنية في دعم وتطوير ونشر أطر سياسات العلوم والتكنولوجيا والابتكار، بما في ذلك تعزيز إدراج وصول المرأة في مجالات العلوم والتكنولوجيا والابتكار، وتوسيع منصات قواعد البيانات الافتراضية على تقنيات مفتوحة المصدر ومتاحة للجميع. السيدات والسادة، إعرابا عن سلطنة عمان، فنؤكد إدراك الحكومة منذ بدء نهضتها الحديثة بأهمية البحث العلمي والابتكار، وبنفس النهج والرؤية تواصل تعزيز دور التعليم والتعلم والبحث العلمي والابتكار وبناء القدرات الوطنية لتكون أساساً للتحول إلى مجتمع المعرفة والاقتصاد المبني عليها. إن رؤية عمان 2040 التي أشرف على إعدادها جلالة السلطان هيثم بن طارق تضمنت هذه المجالات الحيوية، كما اشتمل النظام الأساسي للدولة تأكيداً على أهمية التعليم والبحث العلمي والابتكار. فالدولة تكفل حرية البحث العلمي وتعمل على تشجيع مؤسساته ورعاية الباحثين والمبتكرين، إضافة إلى تكفلها بسبل المساهمة الفعالة للقطاعين الخاص والأهلي في نهضة البحث العلمي، مع حمايتها لحرية الإبداع الفكري ورعاية المبدعين وتشجيعها للنهوض بالقنوات بالفنون والآداب. كما دشنت حكومة سلطنة عمان الاستراتيجية الوطنية للبحث والتطوير 2040 والاستراتيجية الوطنية للابتكار والإطار الوطني لمهارات المستقبل بما يتوائم مع الثورة الصناعية الرابعة، وتعمل حاليا على الانتهاء من قانون البحث والابتكار، وتحقيقا لمبدأ الشراكة والتعاون الدولي في مجال تسخير العلوم والتكنولوجيا بما يتوافق مع مبدأ التعليم الجيد مع أهداف التنمية المستدامة. فقد وفرت حكومة سلطنة عمان من خلال البرنامج العماني للتعاون الثقافي والعلمي عدد 175 منحة دراسية للطلبة الأجانب للدراسة بمؤسسات التعليم العالي العمانية موزعة على 69 دولة ومنظمة عالمية. وامتدادا لذلك مولت حكومة سلطنة عمان 16 كرسيا علميا يحملون اسم كراسي السلطان قابوس العلمية في مختلف الجامعات العالمية المرموقة في مجالات العلوم الإنسانية والمياه والاستزراع الصحراوي ودراسات الشرق أوسطية والآداب والعلوم والرياضيات. في الختام، لا يسعنا إلا أن نتقدم بالشكر الجزيل على جهود حسن التنظيم، متمنين أن تكلل أعمال هذه القمة بالنجاح والتوفيق، وأن تتكاتف جهود الدول الأعضاء في تحقيق نمو مستدام يعزز العلاقات الطيبة والبناءة بين شعوب العالم أجمع. شكرا سيد الرئيس.
Shukran. I now give the floor to Ms. Gabriela Roberte, Jefatura de Organismos Especializados, Dirección de Organismos Internacional, Paraguay, in person.
Gracias, presidente, por concederme la palabra. En nombre de la delegación de Paraguay, quisiera expresar nuestro sincero agradecimiento por ofrecer esta plataforma para el intercambio de experiencias y el aprendizaje mutuo compartido con la comunidad científica y los representantes gubernamentales. Paraguay está comprometido con la ampliación de las capacidades nacionales en ciencia y tecnología para abordar los problemas económicos, sociales y medioambientales, incluida la mejora de la asistencia sanitaria, y considera que este foro es un lugar apropiado para avanzar en este objetivo. Sin embargo, reconocemos que los sistemas de ciencia, tecnología e innovación en los países en desarrollo están infrafinanciados, con importantes lagunas en el acceso y el desarrollo. Como se señala en los informes de la CEPAL, muchos países de América Latina y el Caribe tienen un acceso limitado a instalaciones de investigación, parques tecnológicos e incubadoras. Esto limita su capacidad para llevar a cabo investigación y desarrollo y para comercializar nuevas innovaciones. Por lo tanto, estamos de acuerdo en que los planes de recuperación brindan una oportunidad para reorientar las estrategias de ciencia y tecnología hacia el desarrollo sostenible, reestructurar la colaboración internacional en estas áreas y promover la innovación. En ese sentido, Paraguay está priorizando las inversiones en infraestructura CTI, investigación y desarrollo y transferencia de tecnología, especialmente en sanidad, educación e infraestructura digital. También estamos apoyando políticas y programas que promuevan la innovación y el emprendimiento y apoyan la difusión y adopción de nuevas tecnologías. En Paraguay, el trabajo de investigación y desarrollo científico sobre epidemias e innovaciones para combatir el COVID-19 se ha acelerado, principalmente gracias al Consejo Nacional de Ciencia y Tecnología. En el momento álgido de la pandemia, el CONACYT publicó una convocatoria de financiación competitiva a proyectos de I+D para apoyar la investigación científica en el contexto de la pandemia coronavirus. Los proyectos financiados incluyen estudios epidemiológicos, investigación del comportamiento social, mecanismos para preservar la salud mental, el desarrollo de dispositivos médicos y ensayos preclínicos de activos para prevenir y tratar enfermedades infecciosas. Al abordar los retos que plantea la pandemia, debemos garantizar un acceso equitativo a los recursos, incluidas las vacunas, los medicamentos y el tratamiento. El desarrollo y la adopción de soluciones tecnológicas se ven limitados por factores estructurales, como la situación geográfica de carecer de litoral, que agrava el acceso a infraestructuras digitales eficientes y las barreras socioeconómicas al acceso y la conectividad. Para hacer frente a la brecha digital y a los retos sanitarios, Paraguay ha iniciado el proceso de transformación Agenda Digital, que pretende construir un sistema sanitario integrado con una historia clínica electrónica y una cultura de análisis de datos, con el paciente en el centro del sistema de información y los profesionales sanitarios trabajando en red. Creemos que la comunidad internacional tiene un papel central que desempeñar para ayudar a los países en desarrollo a aprovechar la CTI y acelerar su recuperación de la COVID-19. Esto requerirá el apoyo de los países desarrollados, de los socios para el desarrollo del sistema de la ONU para proporcionar recursos financieros, asistencia técnica y oportunidades de intercambio de conocimientos para ayudar a los países en desarrollo a superar estos obstáculos. En conclusión, reafirmamos nuestro compromiso de promover el papel de la ciencia, tecnología e innovación para acelerar la recuperación de la pandemia del COVID-19 y alcanzar los ODS. Instamos a la comunidad internacional a que apoye una mayor inversión en CTI, facilite la transferencia de tecnología, aumente la participación de las mujeres, mejore la previsión y evaluación de tecnologías y construya un futuro más resistente, sostenible e integrador para todos. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. I now give the floor to Mr. Farhud Jumayev, Director General, National Office for Implementation of Innovation and Technology Transfer under the Ministry of Higher Education, Science and Innovation, Republic of Uzbekistan. I will now move on to the next speaker, Ms. Xiaolan Fu, Professor at Oxford University.
Thank you, Chair, for giving me the floor. First of all, I would like to congratulate UNCTAD for the publication of the Technology and Innovation Report 2023, which focused on opening green windows. So this opening green windows and accelerating the transformation for sustainable development is not only a mission that many of the countries in the world have committed, but it would also open new windows of opportunity for many of the countries in the world by developing new green industries, creating new drivers of economic growth and also employment job opportunities. So I think the choice and the publication of this year's report is very much timely and very much limited. In 2014, that's the first time I gave a talk at the United Nations General Assembly about the innovation in the low-income countries. And in 2015, the year after, we got good news from Addis Ababa that's about the establishment of the technology facilitation mechanism and to emphasize the role of science, technology, innovation for the implementation of the sustainable development goals. So I was really excited about the opportunity and the change that this would bring to the world. Now it's 7 years have passed and we only have, 7 years ahead for the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. Where are we now? And a few days ago, I read a UN report, and what I understand is in many of the areas, in most of the developing countries, our progress is almost zero. Little progress made in many of the areas of the SDGs in many of the developing countries. Although, yeah, we have heard many of the progress and the achievements just now from our ministers. I congratulate them on all these achievements. However, have we done enough to achieve the SDGs? I'm afraid we are far from the achievement of the SDGs. We are far from our objectives. So, have we done enough? What can we do now? I now would like to propose 7 questions for all the stakeholders, not only government policymakers, but also business and civil society organizations to really think about. First is, have we really shown enough political will to bring science technology into our progress for the SDGs? And this year's TRI report has shown that regulatory change play a most important role in create a green windows of opportunity. And so regulatory change, policy change will push, open the window and also enable the countries to seize the windows of opportunity. And however, we say a lot, have we taken enough action to really commit this political will? That's the first question for everybody to think about. The second is, have we prioritized the investment into STI that's oriented for the SDGs? Again, we talked a lot, and whether we have really prioritized this in our policy making. During the pandemic, we see how vaccines, how PPEs, how medicines can change people's life. However, before and after pandemic, have we shown the same level of commitment, and priority to science and technology and innovation? That's my second question. The third one is, have we introduced the policy incentives, enough policy incentives to attract our young people into this science technology for SDG and support them and partner with them? In the morning, we have heard the great minds. One of the things that really inspired me is about Professor Karen talk about, we have to use the energy and the ideas of the young people and really partner with them, especially in Africa, in many developing countries. And have we done enough in this aspect? Number 4 is about incentives and the regulations to really encourage and also to push the business, the private sector and the civil society to move into the sustainable and the green innovation process. And have we engaged with business enough? And have we used policies to incentivize them enough? And especially the multinationals. And also in terms of trade policy, investment policy, and in the trade in negotiations, have we required the multinationals enough for technology transfer? I heard technology transfer from many ministers. And actually, we should, use and in the trade negotiation and investment negotiation to require more technology transfer. As we have seen in the pandemic, and for the vaccine, have we prepared ourselves for next pandemic? And have we asked the multinationals enough for the technology transfer? And the fifth question is going to the rich country, the developed countries. Have we collaborated enough with the developing countries, invest enough and made enough technology transfer to them? This could be license-based, trade-based, rather than a free transfer. But have we done enough? Some ministers talk about open access, and open access sometimes need digital access and digital technology. Many of the developing countries, low-income countries, don't have this infrastructure. So the rich countries, the question is, have we also done enough to collaborate with the developing countries? My sixth question is, have we been bold enough to remove the obstacles in technology transfer? We heard many times about technology transfer. We know there are obstacles. Have we done enough to remove them? We need funding for the technology transfer. We need special policies for in intellectual properties protection, so that we can waive some of the IPR for some of the low-income countries in some of the areas like vaccine, basic medicine, and food, etc. Have we done enough? And also this technology, in the process, the technology pricing, valuation is one of the major obstacles too. The supplier and the user, customer, for the technology, they cannot agree kind of a mutual agreed price for the technology to be transferred. So these are all the obstacles. And I would suggest the UN to prioritize next stage of work to remove the barriers, really take actions to remove the barriers in technology transfer. And then finally, it's about institutions. Institutions, we talked about university. We talked about university bring the good ideas in the lab to the real world. That's we heard in the morning from the great minds. Then have we done enough to remove these obstacles and create a favorable environment to facilitate the technology transfer from the labs to the real world and from the rich countries to the developing countries? So these actions, the removed obstacles, I think that's also a priority area that the international community should focus on in the next year, next phase. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your insights and your questions. I'm sure it's a food for thought and very valuable for us all to reflect, Professor. That brings me to ask whether we have any delegates in the room that wishes to take the floor. I see a flag, my eyes are, I'm challenged visually. So Yemen, you have the floor, Excellency.
شكرا سيد الرئيس. أصحاب المعالي، أصحاب السعادة، سعدتم بالخير مساء. سيد الرئيس، اختارت اللجنة المعنية بتسخير العلم والتكنولوجيا مناقشة موضوعين ذوي أولوية، وهما مسألة تسخير التكنولوجيا والابتكار لإنتاج أنظف وإنتاجية أعلى وقدرة أقوى على المنافسة، ومسألة ضمان المياه المأمونة والصرف الصحي للجميع، حل قائم على العلم والتكنولوجيا والابتكار. وكلا المسألتين تصبان في تحقيق أهداف التنمية المستدامة، وقد تضمنت إحدى التقارير بهذا الشأن عبارة ينبغي الوقوف عندها، وهي أن الجانب الأكبر من التكنولوجيات المطلوبة متوافر، وما يلزم هو وجود إرادة سياسية لتيسير نشرها على نطاق واسع خدمة للناس والكوكب. نعم، هذه الإرادة السياسية تتعثر أمام إرادة الأقلية النفعية العابرة للقارات. وعلى الرغم من أن وباء كوفيد 19 وأزمة المناخ وشحة المياه والهجرة والحرب الأوكرانية قد أسهمت وما زالت تسهم في التذكير بأننا نعيش على مركب واحد وفي كوكب واحد، إلا أن الفجوة بين دول العالم ما زالت كبيرة، لنجد دولا قادرة على مواكبة الرقمنة وتكنولوجيات الثورة الصناعية الرابعة والذكاء الاصطناعي وتكنولوجيا الفضاء وتقنية سلسلة الكتل وإنترنت الأشياء، ودولا تعيش شعوبها تحت خط الفقر جراء الحروب والتهميش والأزمات المفتعلة، والتي لولا غياب الإرادة السياسية الدولية الصادقة لما وجدت. وها هي بلاد اليمن تدخل عتبة العام 9 من حرب شعواء منسية، جعلتها تسير في الاتجاه المعاكس لتحقيق أهداف التنمية المستدامة، وقضت على كافة البنى التحتية والخدمية بما فيها التعليم والصحة ومؤسسات المياه والكهرباء، وخلقت حالة من اللا أمن الغذائي. ومع ذلك يحدون الأمل في المجتمع الدولي وفي أن يسهم الاتفاق السعودي الإيراني الأخير في عودة السلام لليمن، وفي تحجيم ميليشيا الحوثي التي أطلقت شرارة الحرب الأولى وما زالت تؤجج لها. وفي الأخير يدعم اليمن كل توجه دولي لتسخير العلم والتكنولوجيا لتمكين التنمية المستدامة للجميع والتخفيف من الأضرار البيئية وتعزيز السلام والتعاون. وشكرا سيدي الرئيس.
Thank you so much. Can't see that far. Okay, we will take Iran for the right of reply.
Yeah, appreciating galaxy of thoughts that this morning and this afternoon raised the points that was totally relevant to the subject of the issues that we discussed today. We face cascading challenges, and the challenges require due and suitable solution and cooperation among the all nations. The international era faces so many challenges, and for each challenges, we have different forums. The different forums that in which we can discuss the issues totally related to the point. Unfortunately, this is not the first time, but this is several times that some amateur diplomats raise some points which is totally irrelevant to the forum in which we have gathered. For the sheer allegation that I've heard a couple of minutes ago, that's these undocumented issues just leaves some tensions, among the nations instead of to be constructive. This is my request from the chair, not to allow, to be raised, such kind of totally irrelevant issues in the forums that is solely allocated for the developmental issues. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Noted, and we urge all delegates to please be constructive and focus on the theme why we are here. We will appreciate all of us to focus on the theme of this forum. I see Yemen have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving me the floor as a right of reply. I think that the delegate of Iran mentioned that he considered what I have said. Anyway, we have a useful and meaningful proverb in Arabic language. إذا كنت لا تدري فتلك مصيبة وإن كنت تدري فالمصيبة أعظم, which means that if the representative of Iran doesn't know that his regime sent drones and missiles to kill Yemeni children and women, that's catastrophic. But if he knows about that and he tries to deny it and ignore it, it is more catastrophic. I thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We will ask all member states to refrain from using terminology that is not accepted. Thank you so much. Do we have any delegate that wish to take the floor? I see none, but we have a delegate online. Ms. Simone Donate, you have the floor.
Okay, can you hear me? Yes. Thank you.
Point of correction, Mr. Simone, not Mrs. Simone.
Thank you. No. Thank you very much. I'm Professor Simone Donati. I work at the University of Insubria in northern Italy with Professor and in collaboration with OCCAM of President Mr. Saporito that is present in the room now in Geneva. Thank you for my space. I would like only to tell you my opinion about the role of telemedicine. We work a lot with telemedicine, a lot of technologies, and we express our opinions and our project also in the New York Assembly of UN Assembly in October last year. I think that the telemedicine could have a role in the COVID pandemic and in the future, in the post-COVID pandemic, to increase the technology to help population to increase their level of health. I think that telecommunication from far is a good thing to improve the diagnostic for people that are far from diagnosis and health. We know that we have a lot of projects, not only in Europe, but also in over the world, in collaboration with OCCAM, and Mr. Saporito will speak about this project tomorrow in another session of this assembly. I think that telemedicine, that we have a lot of project and experience, could have a role not only in Western countries, but also in Africa or in Asia to improve the level of health for people. And I would like to give you my opinion about this type of new technologies to increase health for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other delegates that wishes to take the floor? If there are no other intervention, I wish to thank all panelists and participants for their contribution to the rich discussions we have had. I wish to invite you tomorrow morning for our session with a high-level panel on ensuring safe water and sanitation for all, a solution through science, technology, and innovation. The session will start at 10 a.m. Prior to that, as indicated in the program, we have two side events starting at 8:30 a.m. One is a hybrid breakfast event, from data protection to data empowerment, good practices from around the world on data spaces, data commons, and data governance. Those attending in person can come to this room. The other event is virtual and is entitled Activating Youth Innovators, Pathways to Enable Youth Leadership in STI for the Sustainable Economy. I wish you all a very nice and restful evening. The meeting is adjourned.